Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 5th January 2021. These are the articles that we'll be dealing today. This article titled Embracing Energy Efficiency is taken from the Hindu. India has a National Action Plan on Climate Change. This was launched in the year 2008. As a part of this, India has a national mission for energy efficiency and it is called as National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency. The National Action Plan on Climate Change has 8 missions, and this is one of the 8 missions. So, if we have to evaluate the performance and impact of all the key energy efficiency programs in India in terms of total energy saved and related reductions in the CO2 emissions, we need to have concrete data. And this is brought out by the report which is presented annually by Ministry of Power and New and Renewable Energy. The nodal agency for ensuring this energy efficiency is a statutory body called the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which was created through a legislation called Energy Conservation Act of 2001. So, the main work of this Bureau of Energy Efficiency is to assist the Ministry of Power in developing policies and strategies, and the main objective is reducing the energy usage and making it efficient. So, reducing the energy intensity of the Indian economy is the main objective. So, this body coordinates with designated consumers, agencies, and all the relevant stakeholders to identify and utilize the existing resources in a much better, efficient way. In this context, we also have to remember that at the Conference of Parties of the UNFCCC, that is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, India has actually promised to bring down the energy intensity of its economy from 33% to 35% compared to the 2005 levels by 2030. So this is one of the pledge at the Paris deal. Now one might have to understand what exactly does this term energy intensity mean. Energy intensity is the amount of energy required to produce one gross domestic product unit. So it means for producing 1 unit of GDP, how much energy we are using. So the lower the energy intensity, the more efficient we are. So that is the meaning of energy efficiency in the context of the Paris climate deal. So our focus should always be on energy efficiency, and the energy efficiency initiatives that India has come up with, we have already reduced 20% compared to the 2005 levels. So we are very much on track with respect to our objectives laid down in the Paris climate deal. So what will be the impact? Energy efficiency reduces greenhouse gas emissions. It will reduce energy imports and thereby improve our current account deficit situation as well. Thirdly, it will reduce the costs on a household and an economy at a wider level. So these are the significant points. This is the background of the entire topic of energy efficiency. Now let us look at the specific news item. The government has released the electricity consumer rules, which try to empower consumers with rights that would allow them to access continuous supply of quality and reliable electricity. So now, as per law, states will have to implement these rules and DISCOMs will be held more accountable for issues like delays in providing and renewing connections of electricity. They are also obligated to provide round the clock electricity to the consumers as per the Ministry of Power. So, to ensure compliance, the government will apply penalties that will be given to the consumer directly in the form of a credit that will directly be transferred to the consumer's account. We already know that DISCOMs are in a severe distress because of lack of working capital and finances. So the government during the time of pandemic has given enough bandwidth to these DISCOMs for financial management. But in this backdrop, we have to understand that consumers are also facing a lot of problems in paying the bills, and citing these reasons, even after delayed payments, the consumers were not getting quality electricity because discoms are citing the reason that they have delayed the payments and they're not renewing the electricity connections and supplying the power. In order to stop this and in order to keep the businesses running that are coming back to life after the COVID lockdown, Indian economy is struggling at this moment. So the bigger lesson that we have to learn from this is the fact that we have to focus on energy efficiency. A study says that by 2030, domestic demand is expected to double. In this background, how do we ensure the supply of quality electricity to meet this 2x demand for power? So the demand side is picking up. But when we are looking from the supply side, the issues are at every level. First one is about generation. We are still generating coal based power, which is antithetical to the ideology that India embraces at Paris climate talks. And similarly, the distribution is also a problem because a lot of discoms are facing severe cash crunch in this present scenario. So the only answer for that will be to focus on energy efficiency. Say, for example, to just give an analogy, imagine a car which gives a mileage of 20 kilometers per liter. Now, if this car is inefficient, it would give you just 10 kilometers per liter. So, isn't it ideal we focus on fixing the system so that it gives 20 kilometers per liter mileage? That is exactly what we are trying to do. When we are focusing on energy efficiency, what we are trying to do is reduce the energy intensity of our economy. That is exactly what we have envisioned as per Paris climate talks as well. So, in a way, we are moving towards that because we have already discussed that we have reduced 20% energy intensity through our star labeling programs. In order to reflect this, there is a study as well. As you can see, the India Residential Energy Survey conducted by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. This survey has actually found out that 75% of air conditions and 60% of refrigerators are star labeled. So they have contributed to this 20% energy efficiency statistic that we are talking about. So this is the only way we can meet this demand. So what are the steps that we need to take? So the article suggests 3 steps. The first step would be to make energy efficiency labeling mandatory for all electric appliances which are consumed to the maximum level. For example, fans. 90% of the homes across India use fans right now. So they will contribute to a significant amount of energy demand. And if we focus on making energy efficiency labels mandatory for this sort of appliances, we will be saving a lot of money as well as energy. Second part is awareness. A lot of households don't understand and appreciate this concept of energy efficiency, and since these products are slightly priced above the normal standards, they would prefer lower efficient products without being actually aware that they will have to pay up more on their electricity bill. So if we increase the awareness and also make this affordable, we will achieve this objective of energy efficiency across the country, especially amongst the middle class in the tier 1 towns. The third most important thing that we have to do is real time management of our power supply. So we have to understand the demand of power at different periods of the time, spatially and temporally. So this means, say for example, if a particular area of a city where working offices are high in number, that area will require higher energy than residential areas. So we have to divert our energy demands in such a way. So this requires smart grids and we have to move towards smart cities conception. So India has actually tasted a lot of success in these terms when we're talking about initiatives like Ujala, etc., where we have significantly ensured that through awareness and making labeling mandatory, we have reduced the costs of appliances as well. LED bulbs used to be very expensive previously. Now the costs have significantly come down because of the government initiative. Similarly, we can try to promote this awareness and bring down the cost through market competition in the longer run. That will help the economy as well. So, that is the gist of this article. This article is taken from the Hindu, and this is regarding the rising unemployment despite a slight recovery in our economy after the lockdown period. So, some surveys, especially the one from Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, has come up with the latest monthly report of unemployment figures. And actually, if we compare the data, in November, the unemployment rate was just 6.51%, but it has increased to a whopping 9.06% in December. So, we have to come up with a formidable plan that will address the issue of urban unemployment, because for rural areas, largely to reduce the distress, Manrega has been very successful. Manrega has actually been witnessing a significant increase in the number of person work days. So the amount is a whopping 243% increase in the person work days. So this increased dependency on Manrega has seen the Rural Development Ministry spend nearly 90% of its allocated budget by the month of November itself, and still the demand shortfall is nearly 13%. So this shows the vulnerability of our population and then kind of employment opportunities that we have in our country at this moment. Manrega is often considered to be a least preferred option for those who are working because it pays relatively lower than the market. But Manrega is a important tool to address this rural poverty. Without Manrega, a lot of Indians would have been starving at this moment. But compare and contrast the scene with urban scenario. A lot of businesses have actually shut down, and multinational companies in the form of gig employment is rising. So they don't have any regular source of income at this moment, and they are still working in this gig employment framework because they have no other alternative. They don't have any social security, and if we take a look at the complaints that this gig economy workers come up with, we understand that they don't get a fair treatment and payment as well. There is an organization called the Fair Work Foundation. So, in its annual review report, it has come up with certain parameters to understand the nature of gig employment and how they are faring. So, the various parameters include fair pay, fair conditions, contracts, management, and representation. And upon survey results analysis, we will find that only two companies, namely Urban Clap, or now Urban Company, and Flipkart, only these two companies do well in this parameters. And whenever we think of gig economy, the first names that would pop up, namely Uber, Ola, Swiggy, Zomato, all these sort of companies are doing pretty poorly, and they are the bottom-most companies in our gig economy amongst the companies that were surveyed. So this shows the vulnerability of this gig employee workers. But here is where we have to move with caution. There are certain constraints in evaluating this data. First of all, gig economy is not that bad. Otherwise, people would not be working with these companies. Even if they were paying money, they would move towards better paying companies. Say, for example, if Uber, Ola, and Zomato have better alternatives, they would move towards that company. So, gig economy workers, we don't have certain numbers and parameters to exactly understand their problems. The first one is lack of data. Whatever data we have at this moment is just from the company's database. we don't know how many numbers are actually hidden. There might be overlap as well, because people working on Uber platform can also work for other platforms. That exactly is the meaning of gig economy. You get paid as per the work given to you. So there exists no authoritative estimate of the total number of gig workers in India. And this is not just for gig economy. In general, when we're talking about unemployment, we don't have formidable data except for certain surveys which come with a lag. Real time data is the first requirement for coming up with a formidable policy with respect to employment. Only when we have this data we can think about regulation, because the next step is significantly more sensitive, and it has to capture the entire gamut of issues that e-commerce platforms and these gig economy platforms try to cater to, because these employees might be getting other sort of benefits which normal employees in the organized sector might not be getting. So there can be an incentive aspect to this as well. So we have to understand it better. A lot of workers look at this as side hustle. Side hustle generally means that it continues to serve as a primary source of employment for a significant number of people, but there are a few people who will have their day jobs, and for extra income on the side they take up this gig employment. That number is also not accounted in our data, and we don't know the exact intensity of this side hustle economy. So here is where we can take the help of uh, our corporates. Say for example Swiggy. Our government has announced a scheme called PM Swanidhi, or PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme. So those who are struggling with working capital after the lockdown, the government has announced certain amount of fund, say 10,000 rupees, as a working capital for these street vendors, and to identify them itself is a big problem. Here is where platforms like Swiggy and Zomato can come into the picture. If they can reach out to these street vendors and ensure that through their technological prowess get them registered and identify them, data gathering will happen at a very quick pace, because there is an incentive involved for them as well. The reason why the small street food vendors are not on Swiggy platform is because they don't have FSSAI approval and other sort of approvals. So with this registration they can get them on board. Swiggy has actually done that and recently announced that it has onboarded 36,000 street food vendors, and they were able to uh, take the help of this PM Swanidhi for kicking back their businesses into action after the lockdown. So this is a win-win scenario, a PPP kind of a model. So when we're talking about urban employment, we have to use this multinational companies for our advantage, because the nature of work that is happening in urban areas may not be able to cater to all the employees if we create a scheme like MGNREGA. Yes, to an extent we can have a scheme wherein they will address the infrastructure needs of this burgeoning cities across the country, because by 2050 it is expected that half of the India's population would be residing in cities. Now it is very important for these cities to be self sustainable, and infrastructure is needed for that. We can use urban employment scheme like an urban version of Manrega to create this basic infrastructure. Apart from that, we can also use companies like Swiggy, Zomato, etc. to create that database of workers and have an understanding for our policy making with respect to our employment figures. We are talking about a digital India. Now, with the Uberization of almost every service, understand this term Uberization, we are talking about aggregator based model. For every basic service, there is an aggregator who collates data and provides a platform for people to find work. A few years ago, in a urban setup, we didn't have a common platform wherein we can find a plumber at the uh, convenience of a single click. Or say for example we didn't have a person who can handle our electricity unless and until electricians contact is available with us today, without actually going out and taking the trouble of understanding the market itself. The platforms are giving us an opportunity to have a equitable development. It is empowering the skilled workforce, it is delivering the data for the government, and at the same time the consumer is also happy because he's getting quality service at an affordable cost. This is the potential of industry 4.0. Whenever we talk about industry 4.0, we only think about automation, but it also opens up a lot of avenues through scale, because it is simply not possible for human intervention to understand and develop this real time data without the use of artificial intelligence and internet of things. So this is where we have to leverage technology to create that urban employment scenario, and not just go for a basic simplified version of Manrega. Yes, this scheme is definitely needed in those areas where a significant chunk of population can be deployed for developing the basic infrastructure, but that is simply not sufficient because it will not meet the aspirations of the urban poor as well. So that is the gist of this article.